So I took a forced break from politics after the last election, which is actually, I think, was a really good thing. You know, you get a little bit of perspective. After serving as a commissioner for 8 years, you get caught in the minutia of everything, you start to lose focus. The break I've had has allowed me to go ahead and take a very, very different look at everything that has been going on in county government, because I'm not involved in it on a daily basis. It's allowed me to use processes like the Public Information Act. It's allowed me to actually review the budget as a citizen and then question the decisions that are being made and why they're being made and where our tax dollars are going. And I had no intention of running for office again, actually. I actually really enjoyed the privacy I got back in my life. It was great. My son's 8 years old, enjoying family and watching him grow, play hockey. Got to play lacrosse this spring. So, but then I'm driving up to Waldorf and see more construction. And then a few months later, I see more construction, then a traffic light, then another traffic light, another gas station, another gas station, another gas station. Then Charles County is going to put one up on 231 over there. And I start questioning things. And then I hear about the mental health rehabilitation center snuck under the radar of the board. You know, allegedly snuck under the radar of the board, certain members of the board. You go back, you pull the notes, and there it is. There was presentations, MPIA, the documents. People were aware how involved they were or not. You know, that's neither here nor there. But for me, funny enough, my decision started right back in this room at their presentation to get back involved, because we didn't know what was going on at all. And the community in Golden Beach, which supports me very much, and I'm very appreciative of their support, we're tired of not being involved in the process. But then again, I started looking at my tax bill, and you know, I love sports, and I pulled out a basketball for the income tax, and that's what it was. It's up, down, no consistency. And I started looking at other taxes and fees that were going up, and I couldn't believe it. I started watching how taxpayer money is going to private projects, and projects that were supposed to have stipulated terms, like the YMCA, that they were supposed to raise money ahead of time, about $3.5 million prior to that project ever started ahead of time without them raising the money. And you know, now Delegate Todd Morgan was there for that conversation. I pulled the video, I have it, you know. Everything's on the record. And I started questioning those things. And while good intentioned, I think based on pricing, I started seeing how the buses were going to be free, or try that. Now, and then growth. And I give Commissioner Colvin all the credit in this, who's sitting right here. He tried what we have right now. What we have is an entire vision that's just gone off course. Straightforward, you know, I was just telling Art this for me. In elected office, sometimes you can get lost in the chicken dinners and trying to show up and be everything for everybody, and then you lose a piece of yourself and why you were there. For me, my two top priorities are God and my family. I'm not going to give those two things up ever again. And my son, 8 years old, I'm going to make sure I'm there for everything I possibly can. And I know what events I need to be at. I know the important ones because the community tells me the important ones that I need to be at, and everything else I can pay attention to and learn about and do what needs to be done. And my focus is really on bringing the taxes back in control, stop all the extra spending, make sure that the government is downsized on it. We don't need big government. Yes, we need to provide services, but there's better ways to do it. I also don't believe that we need government-funded child care facilities.
That's right.
I am 100% against the government child care facility in Leonardtown. I don't want the YMCA to run it. I don't think we need it. We're competing with our own economy and the businesses that are out there. If we want to do this, we could have created a voucher program for our employees if there's going to be an incentive. There's all sorts of other things. So we did not need to do this at all. There's plenty of other uses for that. Our school systems are very important, regardless of what aspect of schooling you're talking about, whether it's homeschool, private school, or public education. And we know that our tenet is to fund public education. And we know the private schools are there and how they're funded, and we know homeschool. My son is homeschooled. And for various reasons, because I disagree with the state's curriculum that they push down, and I don't want that put to him, and I want to teach him Christian values. And thankfully, my mother-in-law is a retired teacher, so we love her now. But we do have support from the public school system. It's a part of the process as well. So funding the school systems last year, again, and I'm not doing this because Commissioner Colvin is here, okay? I'm telling you right now, whether he's here or not, I would say this because I do agree with many things that he has said, and he knows that I do disagree with some. No buses. But, he had a plan. I watched him lay it out to make sure that the schools could be funded to an appropriate level and work everything out. And it just, they couldn't get the consensus on it. And where do we sit now? We sit with redistricting. We sit with one of our 5-star schools that's getting on the chopping block. Parents, again, in the north end of St. Mary's County, feeling the heat because of decisions in Leonardtown. Whether we understand the full scope, because we're involved not involved in the minutia of the discussions that happen behind the scenes, the fact of the matter is that is a failure of one of the tenets that we're supposed to take care of, point blank. School system, public safety, those are just two basic core things that we're supposed to look at as a government. The citizens of this county came out loud and clear on the master plan, and they want parks and recreation. One of the things I was most proud about during my time as a county commissioner was, one, not only fully trying to meet every demand and need that the sheriff's department had, no matter how contentious that relationship could have been during that time, and great at times, but it was Parks and Rec. This county was brought forward many, many years by hard work and investment, and Art was the director at that time, and I think he did a fantastic job. But you look at that survey, and the number one thing the citizens want, parks and recreation, right? That's exactly what they want. They spoke very loud about that. They didn't say that they wanted a $18 million YMCA. They didn't say that they wanted subsidized housing on government-owned land. That's not what they said. And that's another thing that I am 100% against, using government land with government subsidies to build rent-controlled units. I put a post on Facebook today, and it is a play out of New York City. Democrat socialism. That's what those ideas are. Using your dollars to subsidize somebody else's basically future or their outlook. It's not what St. Mary's County is about. This district, the north end of the county, is the most conservative district and location in all of Maryland. All of Maryland. The data backs it up. Delegate Matt Morgan knows it. And it's just a fact. We have to stop catering to everyone else that doesn't hold those values. That's it. Look, everybody votes in this county, whether they're Democrat, Republican, or independent. But you can't compromise your morals and your values. And you can't compromise the things that you stand for once you get in office, because then if you get the people, you get the tenants, you forget the foundation of everything that you stood for. Compromise does need to be had, and you need to be able to work across the aisle, but you still need to stand true to what you stood for, what you ran on, and what your values actually are. And I think that's been lost. So for the north end of the county, and since we're at large in the rest of the county, I truly believe that there needs to be a change, there needs to be a recentering, and that there needs to be a different type of consensus on the board, and groupthink needs to be moved to the side. And the ideas like Commissioner Colvin has brought forward, right? Ideas that former directors have brought forward. Those things are important to me. And lastly on that, there's MACO, there's MML, there's all sorts of conferences and boards that you can be as a county commissioner, right? Everybody, you guys know that how many boards people can participate in that take them away from St. Mary's County? Yeah, I have no intention whatsoever on participating in any of those boards. My focus is St. Mary's County. That's it. That's where I want to be. No subcommittees, nothing else. And I truly feel that's the best way to go ahead and focus. Now, some will say, well, they bring the bacon back to St. Mary's County. Yeah, well, I don't necessarily believe that. I haven't seen the fruits of the labor on any of that. And I've done all the research going all the way back. So I think it needs a recentering. I think we need to focus back on getting our taxes back to where they need to be. Government needs to be downsized. And priorities need to be refocused. So that's why I'm here running for county commissioner again. That's why I'm willing to subject myself to the scrutiny that goes with it, the good, bad, and the indifferent. And anybody that's been in public office or running for public office knows that for every one good thing, there's 3 bad that comes your way, and you got to focus on the good that goes there, and you move on. So I'm willing to do it. My family supports me. I wouldn't be standing up here if my wife didn't condone this type of behavior. And my son as well. But he made me promise that I wouldn't stop roughing, and I would make sure that I'm still there to coach him, whether it's lacrosse or hockey. So I do appreciate all of your time, all of your attention, and any questions? I'm sure there's going to be a few.
How do you see your role as commissioner interfacing with the Board of Education and dealing with the blueprint, Maryland Blueprint for Education?
Right. So the county's done a great job forward funding the actual blueprint, which is outstanding. So my role as commissioner would be the same that it was before. I had an amazing relationship with Dr. Smith, Tammy McCord, the board, all of the members. You know, we would go back and forth, but and even the union, it was a love-hate relationship. I think most of the time they despise me, but it's fine. But that, you know, if you're aggravating the union, I think you're doing a good job, because you can't just roll over and say yes to everything. So my role is to continue to facilitate an open conversation, right? You don't publicly humiliate superintendents. You don't do that to their staff. You know, you're supposed to keep it civil. And if you have to have a tough conversation that could be humiliating, I guess you could say, or demoralizing, you can have that to the side. But you got to keep the public comments out there, right? There's always side meetings, but with Tammy McCord, I can tell you one thing: her numbers have always been spot on. Her growth rates have always been spot on every year. I went back and looked. And once I was able to sit down with them and look at the growth rates and what they were and how they calculated, it was very eye-opening for me. So it's about relationships. And she was definitely always spot on. We always underestimated revenues. And what that means, I mean growth. When we underestimate growth, yeah, you get more revenue, and it creates a savings account at the end of the year. So it means that your tax dollars are just getting put into a savings account, not getting put to work, and then it gets spent on some non-recurring cost at the end of the year or something like that. So my goal is to use every tax dollar appropriately, so it's not creating the savings account.
Yeah. Can I hear your opinion on the housing situation in St. Mary's County? I hate to use a Democratic term, but affordable is what they're using now. In St. Mary's County, the people who are here, the parts of the county that need to be reserved as rural, etc., garden apartments, that kind of crap, that kind of stuff. Any rate, what's your opinion on that?
So there's two things to be very clear. There's subsidized housing, then there's affordable housing. I'm against subsidized housing. I'm for, of course, affordable housing, which St. Mary's County has plenty of, right? Plenty of affordable housing. You do the numbers, and it's based on your actual rate of the average income for the area. And we have plenty of affordable housing in St. Mary's County. And while it's hard, based on time constraints, to truly answer the question, but Most homes are dual income homes, and believe it or not, the average first-time home buyer at a younger rate is a woman versus a man. A man buys it later on in life, a woman actually buys it earlier, probably because they're more sensible and saving, right? Not taking as many risks as us. But it's about getting to a point where you need to be, and home ownership is not a right. It's something that you earn. You get the right job, you move up, you get the right home. It's about making good, conscientious decisions about where you're at economically in your life. Subsidized housing is like trying to build a whole bunch of homes on government-owned land and then doing rent control for $1,000. You know, that I'm 100% against it. We have enough voucher programs. In fact, the other counties go ahead and push them all down to us because we have more vouchers than everybody else. So when you're dealing with people in St. Mary's, you're seeing Baltimore, Prince George's, right? Those are the addresses that you're seeing. And what do they bring with them when they come down here? They bring the same problems from their county down to our county, right? And that's just how it is. It doesn't matter race, color, ethnicity. It's a totally different way of living in another county, and they bring it. And I'm just against the taxpayer subsidized. I got to come around this way because I saw it.
I was going to ask about high-density housing. I'm really against it. And you said that the developer really has the upper hand. So, as a county commissioner, can you attract certain developers, or how is it that you would interact with developers to bring single-family housing instead of high-density housing if they're going to build housing in St. Mary's?
The answer is it's all about the comprehensive plan and zoning and working with the planning commission to make sure there's an established plan for what type of housing that you want and the designation for that area. So parcel is zoned a certain way. It can have high density, it can have garden apartments. If not, if it's zoned one other way, it can only have a single family home on 5 acres, right? So it's all about working on the zoning in a particular area, working tightly with the planning commission to make sure that you have a plan in place. The other side is the ordinances don't need to be so friendly to the developer. So you can make it more friendly to the actual landowner and citizen.
I had a follow-up question.
All right, just let me work. I'll work back up to you. Go ahead. Full.
Because you ran two times before, would this be only a one-time term as we do?
No, the way it works is 3 consecutive terms. So anybody that's on the board has 3 is done, and they can take a break for 4 years, but I'd be able to do 3 consecutive terms.
So let's go back to the affordable housing. What can you, as a commissioner, do to make our housing more affordable?
Well, really what it comes down is to the economy, the job market, and what jobs are down in this area. And the other thing we can do is work on our tax structure to make it more affordable that way. That's the biggest thing. You know, when you have your taxes added on top of your mortgage, it can jack it up. I mean, point blank. You know, so you work on the tax situation. That's how you keep more money in the person's pocket, lower your mortgage rate, and it's a rebounding effect. You know, the job market, what type of jobs are here, lower taxes, you put more money on the income tax into the person's pocket, makes the mortgage more affordable. And housing rates can also fluctuate out, yes.
I should get closer to the door before I ask this question with my 2 sitting county commissioners. Please don't get up and club me across the head. There's talk that the current administration is approaching London Town about the excise tax. Once elected or if elected, if this goes in continuation into the next cycle of commissioners, would you address the issue with forcing or going after London Town for the excise tax? If so, would you then consider to make the excise tax an equal playing board where the same rate applies to a townhome, multifamily home, and single-family home, which those rates are not currently the same?
So, I deal primarily with municipal governments across the state. In fact, a lot of my clients are municipal governments, so I understand the excise tax annexation. I'm an annexation expert, actually. It's what I do right now, primarily. I've done some of the largest annexations in the state of Maryland, and through Prince George's County up all the way north. So when it comes to the annexation issue is separate from the overall excise tax, but the excise tax also plays into annexation. So, one, I think it deserves a larger conversation with the commissioners of Leonard Town as to how the excise tax is being implemented, affected. I understand it was an oversight, or maybe it wasn't an oversight, but it's being portrayed as an oversight now, as to how it's collected and not collected, and the conversation about it going to certain particular things like schools and roads, right? So that one thing is a larger conversation that needs to be had, because normally municipal governments follow the structure that is set by the county, the taxes that are there. So if the excise tax is there, and it was, let's say, a scrivener's error or an oversight in the ordinance, it's gonna have to be discussed with Leonardtown how that's gonna be corrected. Now, as far as Leonardtown's concerned with single-family homes, if you're talking about the incorporated limits, Leonardtown's one of the few places that has their own zoning authority. There's only a handful of municipalities that do have that. So when it comes to the excise tax, you would have to go ahead and have a coordinated effort between their zoning, the county, and all those departments to figure out how it's gonna be applied, and can it be applied unilaterally from the county standard to the municipal standard, or is it easier to do a flat rate like you're suggesting, right? So I can't answer that right now, but what I can tell you is that I have the knowledge to sit down with Leonardtown and understand it fully and see how it's gonna be applied, and what would be the best outcome, not only for St. Mary's County residents, but for the residents of Leonardtown, and it makes the most sense of what it comes out mutually beneficial on that one. Because there's another side of this where most municipalities, let's say in Prince George's County, the taxes, if you're paying the full county tax rate and you don't have services, so like Leonardtown doesn't have a police department, they don't have animal control, they don't have a lot of things, they don't have code enforcement, right? So other municipalities have it where it's a differential. So you get less or more based on the services you provide. And that is actually quite a few places across the state. Prince George is just the easiest because they have the most municipalities, 29 actually, in the entire state of Maryland. So there's a way to talk about differentials, just like you're talking about. But what makes the most sense? What services is the county providing, and how much of those taxes you need to do that go there? So I hope that answered the question.
Excise tax is a tax, you agree?
It is a tax, yes.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
And for it, I was never a fan of the excise tax.
Okay.
I would have always, I did.
Would you look for other options?
Yeah, I absolutely look for other options. I was never a fan of the excise tax. We had the impact fee. I thought that could be adjusted. That was not a me thing. That was another commissioner that always pushed for that.
Thank you.
And lastly, the thing I wanted to say about the excise tax, thank you, is this. The reason I don't support the excise tax is because I wanted to build my business in St. Mary's County. And it's done by square footage. But you want to know where one of my businesses is? Prince George's County, okay? Because it was more affordable, tax-wise, in Prince George's County than it was in St. Mary's County for me to go ahead and do that. And I found some existing structure. So building would have priced me out of business, and I couldn't do it. So you know what, maybe if I find something that's built here and I won't have to deal with the excise tax.
Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. But look, I appreciate all your time. You can get me on Facebook. I answer my questions there all the time. People have my telephone number. If you want to get it, you can feel free to reach out to me. And I'm more than happy to continue any conversations from there. I thank you for all your time. I hope I didn't put anybody to sleep. And
Good job.
thank you.
Thank you.